Baik, pada Mei lalu, Majlis Penasihat Syariah Suruhanjaya Sekuriti Malaysia telah mengemas kini senarai sekuriti patuh syariah sebanyak 820 dari 1011 sekuriti yang didagangkan di Bursa Malaysia adalah patuh syariah. Walaupun sebanyak 81% sekuriti adalah patuh syariah, akan tetapi masih wujud keraguan dalam kalangan pelabur mengenai pelaburan dan juga sekuriti patuh syariah secara amnya, dan sudah bersedia dalam talian untuk bantu kita fahami lebih mendalam mengenai pelaburan patuh syariah, termasuk apakah yang menjadi punca terhadap keraguan dalam kalangan pelabur ini. Kita mempersilakan Muhammad Siddiq Jantan, merupakan Ketua Penyelidikan Pelaburan UAB K Hian Wealth Advisor. Saya nak ucapkan terima kasih Siddiq kerana meluangkan masa bersama kami. Secara ringkasnya, apakah prinsip pelaburan patuh syariah dan bagaimanakah Majlis Penasihat Syariah mengklasifikasikan sesuatu sekuriti itu patuh syariah? Silakan Siddiq.
Okey Nina, pelaburan patuh syariah dikawal selia oleh beberapa peraturan serta parameter syariah. Ini tidak hanya dilihat sebagai pelaburan yang dipengaruhi oleh peraturan yang terlalu ketat. Sebaliknya, satu bentuk pelaburan beretika dan bertanggungjawab sosial. Dari sudut pandangan syariah, pelaburan dalam saham adalah dibenarkan asalkan aktiviti perniagaan tersebut termaktub dalam parameter dan garis panduan syariah. Bagi memastikan pelaburan mematuhi syariah, di Bursa Malaysia, di Security Commission, dia ada terdapat dua peringkat saringan dilaksanakan, iaitu berdasarkan aktiviti perniagaan, yang mana saringan berdasarkan sektor dan juga saringan berdasarkan keuangan. Umum mengetahui apa yang dimaksudkan dengan aktiviti perniagaan, iaitu perniagaan yang mematuhi syariah Islam, perniagaan yang tidak memudaratkan dan bebas daripada aktiviti riba. Dan aktiviti perniagaan, dalam aktiviti perniagaan ni, kalau kita tengok, Majlis Penasihat Syariah meletakkan penanda aras 5% dan 20% untuk profit yang diperolehi daripada syarikat. So ingin saya nyatakan, saringan keuangan adalah berdasarkan nisbah keuangan yang meliputi tunai ke atas jumlah aset dan hutang ke atas jumlah aset tersebut. Bahagian ini melihat kedudukan keuangan yang lebih terperinci. Untuk tunai atas aset, tunai yang diambil kira adalah tunai yang ditempatkan dalam akaun dan instrumen konvensional, manakala tunai yang ditempatkan dalam akaun instrumen Islam tidak diambil kira. So kita berdasarkan clause ini, ia melihat berapa banyak exposure tunai di dalam akaun konvensional. Manakala hutang yang diambil kira ialah hutang yang berteraskan faedah, manakala hutang secara pembiayaan secara Islam ataupun sukuk tidak diambil kira dalam pengiraan ini. So setiap nisbah di atas adalah untuk bertujuan menilai nilai riba, elemen berteraskan riba dalam penyata keuangan kedudukan sesebuah syarikat. So dalam in the general term, kita lihat ianya mestilah kurang daripada 33%.
Baik, Siddiq, itu adalah sedikit mengenai sekuriti dan juga pelaburan patuh syariah. Mungkin Siddiq boleh kongsikan mengapa ada yang masih berpandangan bahawa pelaburan patuh syariah ini mempunyai risiko yang lebih rendah berbanding pelaburan konvensional?
Okey, kalau kita lihat risiko, bila kita cakap tentang risiko pelaburan, kita kena tengok apakah faktor yang menyebabkan sesuatu sekuriti itu expose kepada risiko. So kalau kita lihat untuk kalau kita bandingkan pelaburan konvensional dengan pelaburan syariah, jika kita buat pemandangan apple to apple, artinya syarikat dalam sektor yang sama dan background perniagaan pun yang sama, tapi satu syariah, satu non-syariah, pelaburan patuh syariah mempunyai risiko yang kurang berbanding pelaburan konvensional. Ini disebabkan oleh beberapa faktor. Yang pertama, pelaburan patuh syariah dia mengelakkan perdagangan spekulatif. Ini bermaksud ialah keuangan Islam melarang perdagangan spekulatif yang boleh membantu yang boleh membantu menstabilkan kestabilan keuangan syarikat. Ini kerana perdagangan yang berbentuk spekulatif ini sering melibatkan risiko yang tinggi dan boleh menyebabkan ketidakstabilan keuangan yang signifikan. Yang kedua, kalau yang saya boleh nyatakan di sini adalah balance sheet yang kukuh. So syarikat-syarikat yang layak untuk pelaburan yang patuh syariah ini cenderung mempunyai balance sheet yang lebih kuat dengan nisbah hutang ke aset yang lebih rendah. So kekuatan keuangan ini membuatkan mereka lebih tahan semasa ketidakpastian keadaan pasaran dan kurang cenderung fluctuate semasa pasaran berada dalam keadaan yang tidak stabil. Yang ketiga yang boleh saya katakan di sini adalah kadar leverage yang lebih rendah. So pelaburan patuh syariah biasanya mempunyai nisbah leverage yang lebih rendah berbanding produk-produk keuangan yang lain. Ini bermakna mereka kurang bergantung pada wang pinjaman yang boleh mengurangkan risiko keberkerapan semasa kemerosotan ekonomi. Yang keempat yang saya boleh katakan di sini sekali adalah pelaburan yang berasaskan aset. Pelaburan Islam biasanya berasaskan aset. Artinya aset itu kena wujud, bermakna mereka dikaitkan dengan aset nyata daripada menjadi instrumen kewangan semata-mata. Ini boleh menyediakan prestasi yang lebih baik dari segi risiko, terutamanya semasa krisis kewangan. So keempat-empat ini adalah antara sebab mengapa kita lihat pelaburan patuh syariah cenderung lebih rendah risiko, kurang risiko berbanding dengan pelaburan konvensional.
Dan kita tahu objektif pelaburan ini adalah untuk mendapatkan keuntungan. Pelabur-pelabur mengharapkan iaitu high return of investment. Mungkin Siddiq boleh kongsikan dulu bagaimanakah prestasi pelaburan yang berasaskan syariah?
Okey, saya boleh ambil contoh bukan untuk dari segi security ke security, tapi kita boleh mengambil contoh indeks. Perbandingan yang lebih dekat ini adalah indeks syariah dengan indeks konvensional. So satu contoh yang lebih rapat yang boleh saya buat di sini adalah FTSE Bursa Malaysia Emas dan juga FTSE Bursa Malaysia Emas Syariah. Seperti yang grafik yang saya sediakan, perbandingan keuntungan antara FTSE Bursa Malaysia Emas dan FTSE Bursa Malaysia Syariah adalah berbeza sebanyak 2%, iaitu syariah lebih tinggi 2% daripada konvensional. Kita boleh lihat keadaan ini mungkin dalam jangka masa singkat, tapi ketika pandemik COVID-19, kalau kita ambil contoh previous track record untuk FTSE emas dan juga FTSE konvensional, FTSE emas pada tahun 2020 semasa COVID-19, Bursa Malaysia Emas Syariah meningkat sebanyak 12.9% berbanding indeks konvensional iaitu sebanyak 7% sahaja. Walau bagaimanapun, prestasi ini adalah prestasi lalu dan bukan indikasi kepada prestasi pelaburan yang akan datang. Tapi dalam segi historical performance, pelaburan syariah jauh lebih rendah tahap risiko, tapi return ataupun pulangannya adalah sama level dengan pelaburan konvensional.
Dan Siddiq, ketika pasaran berdepan dengan ketidaktentuan ekonomi pasaran yang disebabkan oleh pelbagai faktor seperti keadaan kadar faedah Fed, krisis geopolitik termasuk juga dengan krisis sumber asli, bagaimana Siddiq melihat potensi pelaburan masa depan syariah ini?
Okey, untuk outlook pelaburan syariah pada tahun 2024, walaupun terdapat ketidakstabilan pasaran dan kadar faedah yang tidak menentu, pelaburan syariah dilihat dapat menawarkan alternatif yang menarik. Kerana ianya, yang pertama sekali yang saya katakan tadi, ianya tidak dipengaruhi dengan kadar faedah, memandangkan ia tidak melabur dalam instrumen berasaskan kredit. Ciri unit ini, kalau kita lihat, ianya dapat menarik daya tarikan, terutamanya apabila dinamik pasaran sangat dipengaruhi oleh kadar faedah. Dalam konteks kadar faedah Fed yang tinggi yang dikekalkan oleh Reserve yang dikekalkan pada minggu lalu, pelaburan syariah kurang terjejas secara langsung berbanding dengan pelaburan konvensional kerana ianya tidak berurusan dengan instrumen yang menghasilkan faedah. Ini boleh melindungi pelabur daripada kesan negatif negatif persekitaran faedah yang tinggi. So berkenaan dengan krisis geopolitik ni, walaupun kejadian sedemikian cenderung menyebabkan pelabur beralih daripada aset berisiko, pelaburan yang mematuhi syariah ini mungkin kurang terjejas kerana yang pertama kriteria pelaburan etika yang fokus pada sektor yang mungkin kurang berubah-ubah ataupun terjejas daripada ketegangan politik ini. So manakala mengenai kekurangan sumber asli, sumber semula jadi, apa yang boleh saya katakan, pelaburan patuh syariah boleh diarahkan kepada arah projek yang mapan dan mesra alam seperti sukuk hijau yang membiayai tenaga boleh dipengaruhi dan aset alam sekitar yang lain. Ini selaras dengan prinsip keuangan Islam yang menekankan pengurusan bumi dan keadilan sosial. So secara keseluruhannya prospek pada 6 bulan yang akan datang iaitu pada 2024 ini, potensi untuk pelaburan syariah kekal kukuh disokong oleh ekosistem yang matang yang menggalakkan inklusi sosial dan juga keuangan. Dan dengan kedudukan strategi dalam sektor pertumbuhan dan projek mapan, pelaburan patuh syariah saya lihat boleh menawarkan alternatif yang tahan lasak dan etika kepada pelabur.
Baik, seperti yang saya dikongsikan bahawa kita telah lihat bagaimanakah potensi pelaburan masa depan, pelaburan patuh syariah terutamanya, dan bagaimana kita dapat meningkat dan kukuhkan lagi potensi pelaburan syariah ini dan disokong oleh ekosistem yang lebih matang agar kita harap dapat menggalakkan lagi iaitu inklusiviti dalam sosial dan juga kewangan. Sekali lagi saya nak ucapkan terima kasih kepada Muhammad Siddiq Jantan merupakan Ketua Pendidikan Pelaburan UOB Kay Wealth Advisor, dan setiap perbincangan ini akan kami rangkumkan dalam astroawani.com dan semua platform digital Astro Awani.
Anjali, awak bukan sedih je macam jeruk. Bisnes dah lama, pelanggan kurang. Nak buat apa, nak suruh datang. Mungkin TV buat kasih pasang, baru datang.
Jangan, Anjali, jangan. Nanti kena denda, kamu di penjara.
Habis macam mana, nak buat apa? Bisman Astro kan ada, pelanggan berganda. Nak tengok bola atau nak tengok opa, Anjali kena cuba. Astro kan ada, pelanggan berganda. Bisnes maju punya ganda-ganda.
Mereka 100% bersedia demi kemenangan.
All set for action. The stars are shining tonight. This is incredible.
Marilah menuju kegemilangan bersama kami.
That's the moment he's been waiting for. There it is.
UEFA Euro 2024, kesemua 51 perlawanan secara langsung di Sport TV dengan Astro.
Seterusnya, peminjam Perbadanan Tabung Pendidikan Tinggi Nasional atau PTPTN digesa merebut peluang insentif diskaun bayaran balik pinjaman.
Fenomena Equinox menjadikan bumi dan matahari berada pada jarak paling dekat dalam sistem solar.
Malaysia berjaya membanteras jenayah berkaitan dadah bernilai 990 juta ringgit sejak 2019.
Jangan meletakkan harapan tinggi berhubung soal mencari jawapan pesawat Malaysia Airlines MH370 yang hilang 10 tahun lepas.
Penyasaran subsidi diesel di Semenanjung tidak akan memberi kesan kepada harga barangan keperluan di Sabah, Sarawak dan Labuan.
660 individu berusia bawah 21 tahun di Sarawak telah diberikan kewarganegaraan.
Sarawak kini menjalinkan kerjasama dengan Bank Dunia dalam menjayakan perdagangan karbonnya.
Biodiversity credits are financial instruments that can be used by companies, communities, and countries to finance tangible outcomes for biodiversity protection or restoration or safeguard. For example, a company can buy a biodiversity credit to support the protection of forests. A company can also buy biodiversity credit to support the protection of an ecosystem, which leads to the protection of a specific species like a cheetah. Let's look at a company which sources avocados from a forest in Colombia. So the company has a clear dependency on the health of that forest, but the forest is increasingly getting degraded. This company goes to a project developer, let's say the project developer X. The project developer will say, I will, for the next 30 years, guarantee an uplift in biodiversity in this patch of land if you are able to guarantee a steady flow of income which will be shared with the community of that forest, as well as supporting the outcomes of a biodiversity uplift. So in this way, the company has an opportunity to finance the outcome, the community is able to secure an income, as well as the project developer has been able to create an economy around that forest, which is not extractive, but is actually able to finance protection. They are extremely valuable in and of themselves, but also have a value for new research. Through their DNA could actually unlock new medicines, but they may not be necessarily be protected through carbon credits. And therefore you need biodiversity credits to value species, to value a variety of ecosystems, which is not only a green, lush forest. If a company is procuring infrastructure or is procuring furniture for its offices, it does have clear guardrails. We need similar guardrails for procurement of biodiversity credits. Was that credit developed in collaboration, in partnership with indigenous people on the ground? Was that credit able to show a clear uplift or a clear protection of biodiversity? And third, and equally important, does it come in complement to or instead of a company mitigating its own negative impact? One, integrity and governance has to be at the mainstay of this market. Second is the free, prior, informed consent of indigenous people. We need to change our language. Indigenous people are not beneficiaries of this system. They are the critical stakeholders. And therefore, any scheme, any project that we develop has to be done in close partnership with the indigenous people's communities. And then the third piece is corporate claims. Buying a biodiversity credit is not a solution on its own. It only works if it is complemented by the company's nature strategy of reducing its negative impacts and ensuring that it is regenerating nature wherever it has value chains, wherever it has operations.
place is made by community, by acts of ritual, and by acts of gathering. Up in an environment where literally architecture is part of how people were kept segregated from each other. And I think if we can understand the power of architecture to force us apart, to other each other, then we also have to be able to understand it as a force for the opposite, as a force to bring us together, as a force to express our cultures and our identities and who we are. I believe that there's so much to learn from our cities, from the ways in which people live, from the rituals and lives of people that we aren't translating into architecture yet, because our systems are inherently colonial and deeply unjust. Panda Fanana, who was the first person from the Congo to study in Belgium. It turns out that he studied horticulture. He was a genius. He passed, summa cum laude. His research contributed to what the landscape of Belgium looks like. So the proposal takes the form of a series of stacked Congolese boats, and each of the boats are planted with species that come from Fanana's horticultural research. When boats are stacked up next to each other in many water landscapes in Africa, they become places for people to trade and gather. There are an infinite number of other ways of being that work from different perspectives, that unpack the world from entirely different worldviews, that really, think about how we listen to the seasons, that think about how we collaborate with nature, that think of ourselves as an entity that is in conjunction with there's no even word for environment in so many languages because what's around us is not conceived of as outside. And I think those perspectives really have so much to offer to our present challenges because they're not only answering questions and solving problems, they're thinking about the question completely differently.
Dia ni semua salah aku, dia.
Dia rasa dia susun semua ni.
Kalau aku boleh ubah semua benda yang berada dengan dia malam tu lah. Dia dah tahu dah.
Stream ke semua episod on demand dan episod akhir di Astro Premier.
Setiap permainan kini megah meledakkan semangat bola sepak kita. Kebijaksanaan strategi dipraktikkan demi memburu semusim kemenangan. Ayo gemuruhkan lagi sokongan. Berjalan dengan baik. Mereka mahu membuktikan sesuatu. Buktikan sepenuhnya perasaan dan harapan. Sokonglah sepenuhnya demi Liga kita, Liga Super, secara langsung di Astro Arena Bola dan Astro Go untuk semua pelanggan Astro.
5 lelaki penghantar makanan didakwa di Mahkamah Majistret Bangi atas tuduhan membunuh seorang pemandu kereta lelaki dalam satu kejadian.
4 sungai di sekitar kawasan perindustrian Pasir Gudang di Johor termasuk Sungai Kim Kim didapati tercemar dan berada pada tahap yang membimbangkan. Kerajaan sudah mulakan inisiatif untuk menggantikan kenderaan operasinya kepada kenderaan elektrik EV dalam skala kecil terlebih dahulu.
Mereka berjaya membuka Nantikannya, Inovaton kembali. Jom sertai Inovaton musim kedua. Jika anda ada idea menarik dan inovatif, sahut cabaran Inovaton. Anda berpeluang memenangi hadiah lumayan. Persembahkan idea 1 minit anda dan hantarkan video secara online. Atau hadirkan diri ke lokasi berikut untuk membentangkan idea anda. Selamat mencuba. Moga berjaya. Tonjolkan idea inovasi anda yang terpendam selama ini.
Terdapat sedikit kebimbangan berkaitan dengan peningkatan kos sara hidup dan juga bagaimana untuk orang ramai mengimbangi peningkatan kos itu dengan perbelanjaan hari raya nanti. Sepanjang bulan Ramadan nanti, cuaca dijangka panas kering sepanjang 30 hari berkenaan.
Peniaga makanan di Bazar Ramadan dinasihatkan supaya jujur dalam menyediakan makanan, terutamanya dari sudut kualiti dan penjagaan makanan.
Alright, continuing on Niaga AWANI, we're going to talk about on property sector, and a delay in any construction or property project has become a common situation in Malaysia that involves contractor, client or consultant may face. And the industry is aware of the causes and impacts of delaying the construction. However, a little to no effort has been made to reduce this phenomenon. And Malaysia is a developing nation with a lot of upcoming and ongoing development projects. So to discuss further on this issue, we have two of the right authorities joining me in the studio right now, which is on my right is JC Ng, founder and CEO of New Ace, and on his right is Tan Lutun, the Chief Technology Officer of New Ace. Thank you for joining me this morning.
Good morning.
And perhaps we can start with what is the reality of property and also construction industry in Malaysia, JC?
Okay, actually at least because as we know in the construction and property industry, we actually can segregate it into 3 phases. One is we call it pre-construction phase. During the pre-construction phases, because we know that it's actually when the drawing, they will always keep changing, and then the client will need to get a lot of the permit from the local authorities or the government agencies. We know all this process is actually time-consuming during the pre-construction phases. Then after that is during the construction phase. So during the construction phase, we know that when you step into the construction site, a lot of unforeseen scenario will be happen. So okay, this is the first. Second, something we know that nowadays all the construction site is actually facing the labor shortage. Okay, then next is in the construction site, people normally is lack of communication because why, you know, the construction site is very big. So from every time when they want to communicate, actually is quite tough. Then lastly is another we call it post-construction stage. During the post-construction stage, they will need to certify we call it the final account. So when to certify the final account is also take time. So if the final account is not approved yet, it will also affect their working position, this kind of thing. So that's why all these factor is actually will cause the delay of the construction.
So Lutun, as of now, what's the figure or statistics on these delayed projects or constructions?
Okay, the delays is actually, we can have many ways to measure on the delays, because as we know that construction is actually a very complex, complicated industry. Okay, it involves a huge investment. It's also actually involved many stakeholders like the consultant, main con, subcon, and also those specialists. Okay, so a project could take times. Actually, like a small project can be like a landed property takes 2 years to 3 years, and then the integrated one will be take 5 years. Then normally a lot of property developers will split into the multiple small project. Okay, so every stage it could cause delays. Okay, and actually the delays will need to be relies on the monitorings that we are looking at. Yeah, that is where New Ace is actually solving the problem on the helping developers on monitoring to measure on the delays that happens day to day on the operations. Yeah, different stage could have a different measurement on the delays.
If I could read some facts here, it says that with over 9,114 projects reflecting the vibrancy of our nation's advancements, and however, the unfortunate reality is that significant number of these projects have been plagued by delays with over 141 identified cases of recent data. So maybe JC, can you lay out all the primary factors that causing these delays?
Okay. What I mentioned just now, the causing the delay, the main reason we found out throughout we implement the system to the industry is the lack of communication. Because to carry on the project is not only the construction site, it will also involve the back office, it will involve the consultant, involve the government agency every time. So if you can see, when involve every party here, if do not have a centralized system to let them easy to communicate, then will cause the lack of communication, like what I mentioned. When the communication is lack of communication, then will cause the delay. This is the first. Second, when to obtain the approval. Okay, every time when they want to do something, they will need to obtain approval. Nowadays, still a lot of the company actually is using, we call it a manual way, using paper. When you want to do something, you need to imagine if you want to obtain 8 to 10 signatures, it's very, very tough. So when we have the system, you can obtain the approval within a second.
Seconds.
Yes, it's very fast. From our own statistic, we found it's actually 90% time saving for the obtained approvals. Yes.
But does this lack of communications differ for each phases from different projects?
Yes, same. Actually, regardless is the residential or commercial, lack of communication is actually happens. It's actually happen.
So, Lutun, can you explain how does New Age helps with this, all the delayed projects, also lack in communications?
Yes.
How do you manage all these problems?
Yeah, sure. So in New Age, as a technology providers, actually we always believe that one of the key factors will be the lack of monitoring. And monitoring is actually relies on data. Okay, some of the common challenges that facing is actually ensure the accuracy of the data and real time on the data, and also how to make the data visibility to the management. Okay, so in the New Age, we actually have built a full suite of the solution and the system to assist the players to capture the data in an accurate way, okay, in real-time methods. And actually, we have a interactive dashboard to be presented to the management, to the stakeholder, so that everyone have a better monitoring on the data. Yeah.
What are specific features that New Age have that is different from other existing solutions in Malaysia?
Okay. New Age, we implement, we call it is an end-to-end solution. Why we call it end-to-end solution? Like in the beginning, I actually mentioned that the construction stage is involved pre-construction, construction stage, and also post-construction. So during the pre-construction stage, we do have we call it project management modules, which can cater the pre-construction stage. Then after that, during the construction stage, we do have the tender management, contract management, to cater the construction stage phases. Then after that, during the post-construction stage, we do have the defect management, and also we call it site inspection module, which is we call it end-to-end solution. Because nowadays in the market, we found most of the system is actually piece and parcel. So when piece and parcel, people is you actually create the difficulties to the user, because why you need to log in to different system, okay, to use it. But now in New Age, actually, you just need to one login, you can settle everything. Okay, so this is the main we call is our own unique selling points for New Age. This is the first, and then second is we actually quite proud of our, we call it bill of quantity, the BQ creation. A construction project normally involves bill of quantity, a stack of bill of quantities about 500, 600 pages. But now we successfully to digitalize these 500 to 600 pages BQ into the digital format. So when the client want to call the tender, they're easy to set up their tender. And then those tenderers actually easy to fill up the tenders. Okay, so when the tender is closed, the tender committee, when they want to do the tender comparison or do the tender analysis is within the fingertips. Yeah. So these are our key selling point. And also we do have, we call it is the audit trails. So these audit trails is actually keep tracks every step by step. So when you keep track every step by step, it creates the trustability, okay, and credibility to the project, because we know that nowadays construction need to be in transparency. Yeah. So this is our unique selling point.
So Lutun, as a solution provider, New Ace as a solution provider, how do you constantly make sure that all the needs and requirements from not just the investors but also the customers is being addressed? How do you cater to all that at the same time, and with all the technological investments that we have, you know, as a solution provider, we have to always provide. So how do you cater to that?
Okay, to us, one of the key success factor is actually we are working very close with our clients, okay, which is the industry players, we are the expert. Okay, so this also how we always, when we meet our clients, we always tell them we are actually coming from a technology company, okay, technology background. We don't have the knowledge on the construction, but we are actually come in as a fresh-minded to help the industry. So we are actually more willing to listen, okay, to the consultants and also the industry players, the user, to understand what is the day-to-day process flow. Then we provide a different angle of way to solve the problem, day-to-day problem using the technology. Okay, so that is how we are actually gain the knowledge and then build the function, the features that is specifically for their day-to-day use, operation use, with a fresh mind, without some of the backlogs from the knowledge. Some of the fixed ideas come from the industry, but we actually break through it, and then we use the modern technology, we use cloud computing, we use AI, and we use a lot of others mobile technology that help them to be solve their day-to-day problem, ease their day-to-day works. Yeah.
And interesting that we have this data synchronization. So what role does this data synchronization play when it comes to approaching to project management and reducing inefficiencies, especially errors in instructions of a project management?
Okay, for this data synchronization, because we are actually full suite of the system, we always believe that the right data should be keyed by the right people at the right time at the right place. Okay, that is how we are actually able to monitor on the data, monitor on the progress of the system, on the construction project. Okay, so because of we are full service system, like just now JC did mention that we have the planning during the planning stage, and then we do a BQ by the consultant. All the costing is actually keyed by the consultant, verified by the people, and then when they do the call the tender, vendor selection, they actually get the tender rates from all the contractors, which is actually when they participate in the, once they selected the right person to do the work, and then subsequent project ongoing will actually based on the BQ items to be claimed accordingly. So basically you can see the from the budget to the award and also to the final claim is actually end-to-end monitoring. That is the uniqueness on New Ace compared with the solution at the market. Yeah, we actually track on the very specific line-by-line items. Yeah.
And when we talk about project management that involves many parties, it's important to promote transparency and accountability.
Yes.
So how does New Ace promote these two, especially when it comes to or relates to project timelines and also budget management?
Okay. Just now, my partner also mentioned, because we are actually, it's the end-to-end solution. So, and the system is actually in the cloud base. So we actually provide the real-time data to all the stakeholders. We need to say from the clients, from consultant to the main con, subcon and suppliers. Actually, everyone can have the real data, real times. Okay, the real data, real time. Why I say so? Because, for example, today if the sites lack of the steel bar, for example, they can make the request using the system. So when they start using raise the request, it's already start record in the system. This is what I mentioned just now, is traceable and transparent. And then even though in construction we know that there's a lot of variation order VO. Okay, VO is something very hated by the client. I can say so, even though government also the same. Okay, so with the system, everything online. So when you want to raise the VO, it's also very easy to justify. Why say easy to justify? Because when you raise the VO, first thing first, you need to get the consultant approval first. So when the consultant approval will also obtain in the system. So as you can see here, everything is in the system. So when you want to run, until the project end or completed, when you want to run the final report, actually it's very easy. Okay, this is the first. Second, how to say accountability, because since everything is using the system, it can actually reduce a lot the human error. Okay, so we know that construction involves a lot of people. So if every single step you still want to continue with the manual way, I can say there will be a lot of human error. But with the system, with help of the system, the human error will be reduced a lot. Okay. Lastly, we can have the more efficient coordination, because using the system, everybody, when they want to communicate, they can through the system as well. There's the chat function in the system. They can communicate everything. And yeah, this is why I mentioned all this real-time data. We have the efficient coordination, and also we call it transparent. Then it can increase the accountability. Yeah.
But realistically speaking, like you mentioned earlier, it will reduce human errors.
Yes.
But it comes with a package of cyber threats as well. So Lutun, can you explain perhaps in the future potential customers or investors how do we be prepared for all these cyber threats that will affect all the data online?
Yeah, sure. So for we look into security very careful and very serious on the security, especially is nowadays it's a cloud platform, it's open to everyone to access everywhere. So we do have conduct the penetration test, security test by the third-party consultant in a yearly basis, okay, to as a third party to try to access to the system and find the loophole from the system, and then we will be tighten out the security, upgrade the function, the system from time to time. That is the measure that we are actually taking a step ahead by conducted by the external parties. Yeah.
Anything you can add?
I think more or less is what Luntun mentioned just now, because we know cybersecurity now is a very hot topic in okay, so that's why we also take it very serious. So first thing first, we use a very well-known cloud-based cloud service provider. Okay, it's the number one in the world. And the second, we actually yearly we are doing the penetration test. So from the report the penetration provider gives us, then we will do the so we will have the solution to go and overcome the things. Yes.
So far, how many companies you have helped with this solution provider of New Ace?
Current, you mean our current clients or how?
Yes, success stories.
Oh, success stories, okay. At this moment, we do have about 4 to 5. We call it is our anchor user. Okay, these 4 to 5 actually I can say is the top 10 properties developer in the market.
All right, like looking ahead to the future, what are New Ace plans and strategies for further enhancing capabilities and also expanding impact in the Malaysian market, especially 2024 and perhaps in the years forward?
Okay, I think now everybody is talking about the AI. So I myself and my partner actually have the idea, have the thinking, say that maybe we can integrate our system with ChatGPT. So anything when this happens, so they can use the system to get the info from the ChatGPT AI. Maybe you can add further more on it.
Yeah, I think for New Ace, we evolved from web-based from the very early stage to the mobiles, which is allowed the site team, the engineers to collect the data from the project site. Okay. Now we talk about like big data earlier, and we are presenting the data into a very interactive dashboard for the management. Okay, and in the near future, hot topic is actually the ChatGPT, where actually we how to make use of the use of the data to train on the ChatGPT model, the AI models, and then in order to how to answer back the question very fast and in a human methods. Okay, for example, we ask the system about like, okay, what are the past price increase for the steel bars, and then he actually able to analyze, okay, from years 2020 it's actually this price, and then in 2002, and then it's actually surged in this month. So it's actually able to answer the management, so that to help the property to do planning, negotiations, and also on the negotiation on getting the best price for the building materials.
As for you personally, have you tried using ChatGPT in your daily life?
Yes.
Yes, we ourselves in AWANI, we've used ChatGPT as well for our daily work. So I think ChatGPT or AI in general is very helpful.
Yep.
But considering the scale of project delays issue in Malaysia, right? What broader societal or economic impacts that you foresee that UAs can help to give solutions?
Okay, so like we mentioned just now, if the project is delayed, to an investor, definitely to them is their ROI will be reduced, because when every time when the project is delayed, it maybe will cost a LED. Okay, so when there's a LED coming in, or when the project is delayed, you will need more manpower. So their ROI will have impact. Secondly, to the contractor, if the project delay will also cost them, maybe will have some trouble in their cash flow, and also will affect their next project. As we know, contractor is project by project basis. Okay, then the lastly is to the community. To the community, we call it as our rakyat. So if the project is delayed, meaning to say the supply into the market is less. So when the supply to the market is less, will cause our housing price is still high. Okay, so that's why I think government need to have some we call it some governance or some rules or some compliance coming to implement, say that maybe upcoming those property developer or contractor, maybe to encourage them to using the system, because we strongly believe that if you're using the system, it actually can cut off a lot of the human error issue. Yeah, this is the thing. Yeah.
But when we talk of solution provider, when it comes to expenses of each project, does it going to reduce, or actually it's going to we have to inject more resources for that?
Okay, like you see like this. To implement the system, definitely there is a cost. Okay, to implement a system, definitely there is cost, especially when come to some client, they want to have some customization or configuration to the system to suit their internal compliance and governance. There will be a cost, definitely. But with the efficient communication, okay, with the efficient communication, if you can complete the project on time, okay, you actually is already considered is saving costs already. Why I'm saying so? Every day when there's a delay, a single day, you will need to pay your labor. Actually, the labor the cost is very high. Second, if the project is delayed, every day not only labor, your building materials, there's a cost also. So that's why we try to using the system. We perhaps in 1 day, the building material we call it just in time. The building material can you just order when delivered to the construction sites, maybe the same day or the next day, already can use the building material. So you don't need to wait you don't need to let the building material stay there maybe weeks or months. There's also a cost because you need a space to store it. That's the thing. Yeah. So that's why we believe that with the system, actually is a cost saving to everyone.
Maybe Lutun, last one, some outlook for the future of construction and property sector. Do you think that inefficiency will reduce, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think now government is actually pushing on the digitalization, promoting a lot of digital in all sectors, as I think definitely including in the construction. As a new age, we actually also working closely with Construction Board of Malaysia, CIDBs, okay, to promote the digitalization. Because I think no matter what kind of system that we are talking about, I think it still relies on the people to really need to try it, use it, and adapt it into their day-to-day operation. So I think we are actually working closely with all those initiatives, with the government, with the association for the contractor to promote this digitalization. So when more people are using system, okay, can adopt system, and then it's actually encourage more big player to also use it. Because nowadays a lot of those developers, they actually also take a step back, maybe they will also worry about their contractor, their subcon, whether they're able to adapt to these changes or not. But you'll be surprised, they actually, nowadays, a lot of people already know how to use phone, use system. Okay, now even we live the system for them to use it, they're actually willing to use it. After some time, they will actually feel that everything is traceable and tracking and have a records. They're actually more happy to have a system compared with the previous using the manual way where could be missing some of the data documents. Yeah.
You want to add anything on the outlooks?
Yes,
okay. All right. I think that's all for today's discussion. And that was JC Ng, the founder and CEO of New Ace. And on his right is Tan Lu Tun, the Chief Technology Officer of New Ace. Thank you so much again for coming to our studio, Awani. And you can find the whole discussion on astroawani.com and all of our social media platforms.
Terdapat sedikit kebimbangan berkaitan dengan peningkatan kos sara hidup dan juga bagaimana untuk orang ramai mengimbangi peningkatan kos itu dengan pembelanjaan hari raya nanti. Sepanjang bulan Ramadan nanti, cuaca dijangka panas kering sepanjang 30 hari berkenaan.
Peniaga makanan di Bazar Ramadan dinasihatkan supaya jujur dalam menyediakan makanan, terutamanya dari sudut kualiti dan penjagaan makanan.
Astro membawakan detik indah melaksanakan rukun Islam kelima.
Saat yang tidak boleh diceritakan dengan perkataan. Ibadah haji, anugerah terindah. Ilmu, iman, inspirasi.
Istimewa Aidil Adha. Hayati erti pengorbanan.
Berkorban demi keluarga.
Berbuat baiklah kepada kedua ibu bapamu. Semoga amalan anda membawa anda semua ke syurga.
Makcik salah orang ni.
Cik Rizal tak pernah jumpa dengan ibu bapa Cik Rizal dulu. Bawalah dia balik.
Berbakti sesama insan. Masa anugerah terindah. Salam Aidil Adha.
Hello and welcome to Niaga Spotlight with me, Tamina Kausji. Niaga Spotlight goes through the week in business and future affairs, market watch, industries, analysis and insights. We've got you covered right here on Niaga Spotlight. Well, today on Future Affairs, we're looking at all things plastic. Now, the fascinating thing about plastics is while they pervade our daily environment, it has increasingly become a concern. What with microplastics being in the headlines recently. And let me share a couple of interesting stats about where Malaysia is and how we're doing. I've got some not so great news for us. Firstly, Malaysia actually ranks as the 5th global plastic polluter of the oceans and actually highest amongst 6 countries in Southeast Asia. And this is in terms of annual per capita plastic packaging consumption. So, of course, environmental problems linked to responsible and sustainable disposal and recycling of plastic are naturally a concern. And globally, in fact, only around 9% of our plastic output actually is recycled at all. So, all of these issues give us a very interesting boatload to get into in depth, and I have the absolute pleasure of having joining me live in the studios today for Niaga Spotlight, Sia Kian Ho, who is the founder as well as managing director for Heng Hiap Industries, HHI, Sendirian Berhad. Kian, so good to have you, and especially thanks to your jet set schedule, you are actually here straight off a couple of very interesting conferences in Europe. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me here, Sabina. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. So, Kian, let's get started off by perhaps you telling us a little bit about HHI's origins and how it is that you moved quite quickly into an interest in plastics and then realizing not just the recycling potential, but for commercialization of these recycled products.
Sure. Try to make it quick. I basically was introduced to this industry at a young age of 10. You know, my parents were collecting recyclable from household to household. The Buri Surakaba guys, buy old newspaper guys.
That's right.
Both
that's right.
my mom and dad were collecting recyclable from household to household. So very quickly we go from a mobile picker, yard owner, processor, and finally aggregator. So today we are one of the 2 largest metal scrap and paper scrap supplier to local steel mills and paper mills And for me, I started HHI 22 years ago.
Right.
So when we first went into this industry, it is very fragmented. Yeah? The industry is broken into 6 independent businesses, namely, company A is doing collection, B is doing sorting, crushing, washing, mixing, final extrusion. Because of that fragmentation, HHI decided to integrate the entire process so that we can get much better consistency, and therefore we can scale up, to convert plastic scrap into standardized material to be specced in, and mainly to support exporting market.
Fantastic. So it's been a very, I would say, fast-paced journey, even though it began 22 years ago, which was around 2002, right?
Correct.
So standing here now in 2024, and also on the tail end of what was basically sort of like a global shutdown for around 4 years related to the pandemic, and of course, conferences, R&D, development, would you say that really impacted the recyclable and the plastics industry in general? And how have you all been able to catch up with that gap that was left due to the pandemic years?
Correct. I think the pandemic time was actually a nice pause, to the industry. In fact, the development never stopped. In fact, during that time, in terms of sustainability, there were a lot of initiative. Sustainability was actually moving faster.
Sure.
During pandemic.
Because people were so hyper aware, I would say.
Exactly. And everybody was in the office. Decision get made very, very quickly. It was very, very focused. So in fact, it was actually moving faster during pandemic. So during that period of time, it's also a little bit of a focus that is more human-centric. And that's what I really like. Before that, the entire plastic industry was all about making things faster, better, prettier, cheaper. But suddenly, with the pandemic coming in, everyone started to think about, how do we make the entire industry more human-centric? And that ties in really nicely with sustainability.
Exactly, because what I'm hearing when it comes to production and materials, etc., that also means consumption. But of course, HHI's mission is more about using the plastic that is already there to create something that is infinitely usable in a sense, right? Tell me more about this ethos, and also the fact that you are also ocean-bound plastic certified.
Okay. Try to keep this simple.
Sure.
So on my side here, so basically for me personally, I do not believe in plastic pollution. This terminology of plastic pollution, fundamentally I don't believe in that. I believe in plastic ignorance, simply because we don't understand the inherent property of plastic after consumption, an empty bottle, for example. So if you give us an empty bottle, we start to look into what is the inherent mechanical property. So before and after consumption is the same. We look into the thermal property, meaning the calories that trap within that plastic itself or inherent embedded within the plastic itself. Before and after consumption, same. And then we look at it from a chemical, from the chemical property point of view, that essentially everything is hydrocarbon, hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen. So there are a lot of things that we can attract there. So then it is, for HHI, we then try to find a way to create value from all this plastic scrap that a lot of people do not understand. So we have been doing, collecting and recycling land-based plastic, and we collect up to 60,000 tons a year within Malaysia only, and we export to 39 different countries. So that's something that we're doing at this point of time. 2019, right before pandemic, we start to see that marine pollution was populating headlines. And then in order to be a protector and to fight marine pollution, we decided to extend our integrated model, which was previously land-based, to ocean-bound, so that it can allow us to collect and clean up, all this shore and ocean plastic that has been unfortunately leaking to the ocean. So it becomes a very, very interesting journey, because we realize it is a lot more challenging due to the complexity of it. And each and every time when we do an ocean cleanup activity, the quality and the quantity we're collecting, it's very inconsistent and relatively small. And that impact the cost or the economics of it.
Of course, of course. And what I actually really enjoyed from what you've shared, Kian, is the fact that you deem it plastic ignorance, not pollution. Because that brings me back to the fact that, well, inherently a plastic bottle, whether it's something that you're currently drinking from or it's been cast aside on the road or it's bobbing along in a river, it's not bad per se, right? So now, the fact remains, though, that it takes, what, roughly 450 years for that one little bottle to break down. So let's talk about the fact that, as you shared, now HHI, of course, you're exporting to 39 countries. We hope you get to that big 50 very soon. So there's clearly a demand for such sustainable products that come from pre-existing plastic, then perfectly packaged into the consumer needs. So tell us more about basically moving forward. How has understandings about circular plastic supply chains also increased? Because there's clearly a lot of work happening, not so much behind the scenes, but it may be something which is only that experts in your industry are aware of as developments go.
I think, as consumer, we probably would not see, all this effort behind the scene, as you put it. But quietly, since pandemic, we actually have seen a very strong positive undercurrent, if you will.
Right.
Everyone is really looking into how do we design, our material differently, simply because we understand that we cannot continue to have business as usual, whereby we make the plastic product, we consume the plastic product, and then we dispose it. It's simply too costly, to support this linear consumption pattern. So there are a lot of great initiative to study, to redesign the material so that we're using the minimum weight in our packaging. In the past, we have multi-layers. Now it's just mono-layers. Even increasingly, as you start to travel, you will start to see that the mineral water bottle comes without a label. So all these initiatives are simplifying as such so that when we recycle that, we can recycle that very effectively. And the most exciting part of it is that we have countries that are starting to adopt a minimum usage of recycled content in their packaging product. California as a state will basically dictate that 25% of recycled content must be included in all packaging material by 2025. So things are speeding up really quickly. The states, other states are following through, including EU are studying something similar like that, even with a more aggressive goal of much higher recycled content. So things are all, coming together in a positive way, the way I look at it.
That's absolutely what it sounds like. But also looking at the historical both profitability and also the burden that lies with Southeast Asia. Firstly, of course, we were rubber producing and are rubber producing. That naturally made us hot zones for producing plastic. In the early years, about 60 years ago, that was boom town, right? So now how do we turn the clock and the attention for Asian economies, for Malaysia also, to have a chance to be a leader in this industry of circular plastic supply chains? We've already become more of a focus for a various number of global supply chains due to the pandemic, geopolitical risk, etc., etc. How do we make this the next big boom?
I like that question. So you're absolutely right. Malaysia, I always say that Malaysia, we're not a big country. We are not a small country either.
That's right. Just nice, that sweet spot in the middle.
Exactly. And I think that at the right time, we should make our voices heard, so to speak. If we talk about plastic recycling or national plastic recycling rate, in developed country, we will start to see that developed countries are very good with top-down approach. They have a good national recycling program or regulation. Then there's the infrastructure to support that and engagement to make that work for top down. Our government continue on that journey, but for HHI, while waiting and encouraging to see that's happening, HHI as a company, together with our community, we are trying to create a bottom-up approach. So what we have done is that we activated the independent plastic recycling community. That is 28,000 of us here in Malaysia.
Wow. In Malaysia?
In Malaysia
28,000. Okay. All right.
Right. And then we are collecting recyclable. And these are all the, bio newspaper guys,
yes, absolutely. Consolidating everybody.
Exactly. So we go from, mobile picker, yard owner, processor, and aggregator.
Right.
Now, along the way, we actually track, all the ESG related mileage. And then along the way, we start to process and convert the material based on the standard that HHI has shared as the de facto industrial standard. And with that, we could actually kickstart something that's very exciting this year. So this year, we kickstart a 4M program.
All right.
Yeah? So the 4M program basically says 100% collect in Malaysia, 100% recycle in Malaysia, 100% made in Malaysia for Malaysians.
Okay, so collect, recycle, made, and for everything
Malaysia.
Within Malaysia
itself.
Okay,
so
closing that loop.
Closing that loop. So
Right.
we're trying to showcase that the local circularity is possible. So we're working with big brands on that. So for example, we are also collecting from schools. So we collect the lunch boxes, the recycled plastic from schools. We then recycle in HHI. We work with big international brands, to convert that into furniture. And then when we give the pen back to the school, the kids are bringing the pen and show their parents and say, see, circularity works. Our lunch boxes that we've been collecting and then sending to the schools are converted into the barrel of this pen, and this pen is 100% recycled.
Fantastic.
So those are our next generation of plastic neutrality, believers, and they are the ones that make it happen.
Exactly. I love the fact that what you're talking about, everything, it sounds to me like not just economic opportunity, but a way to be genuinely sustainable in the businesses that people are doing. If you don't mind telling me a little bit about the Next Wave Plastics Consortium, which HHI has also been a part of since November last year.
Yeah. So again, this is again another one of these interesting phenomena that we are working together. So this is actually a group, a consortium founded in US, and you have some of the big brands like Dell, HP, so on and so forth.
Sure.
There has been, putting all these brands together. You have some really high-profile champions coming together to fight marine pollution. So what we do then is that in the past, our role is just supplier. As a supplier, they only talk to us about two subjects. What is the specification? And then what is the price? And then we are done. But now with Next Wave, what we are talking about is how do we redesign the entire plastic life cycle. So we actually got a seat on the table to look at it from a recycler's point of view to say that, hey, if we are going to reinvent the entire life cycle from a linear life cycle to a circular one, these are the things that we could actually include to redesign the entire product. It's a really, really exciting time. To be part of Next Wave.
Absolutely. It sounds like, this is indeed the next step, and how it will turn out is actually going to impact how plastics and the face of the planet is going to look like over the next 50 years. All right, Kian, absolutely fascinating conversation. We do take a quick brief break though. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us right here on Niaga Spotlight. We'll be back in a jiffy.
UEFA Euro 2024 ke semua 51 perlawanan secara langsung di SPO TV dengan Astro.
Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim is confident that the Malaysian economy will achieve stronger growth between 4 to 5% in 2024.
Among Palestine's top two officials were jointly charged with 161 counts of money laundering, criminal breach of trust and cheating.
Malaysia will experience drier and hotter weather due to prolonged lack of rain in the final phase of the northeast monsoon.
Apa jua yang berlaku di sekeliling kita, pastinya ada punca dan kesan masing-masing. Faktor harga ekonomi, pengaruh politik dalam atau luar negara memberikan impak kepada kehidupan harian kita. Di Niaga Awani kami memberikan gambaran jelas melalui analisis mendalam, merentas pelbagai segmen dan latar belakang. Kami akan bantu anda untuk faham segalanya. Bisnes, ekonomi, pasaran, Niaga Awani, 9 pagi Isnin hingga Jumaat, hanya di Astro Awani.
Jaga kita pun benda jaga kita. Korang ni semua sama je, keras kepala macam Along. Korang nak aku mati, hadap orang seorang. Kalau ada apa-apa yang berlaku, siapa nak jaga adik-adik aku? Siapa? Maafkan Allah.
Aku harap satu hari nanti engkau ada ruang dalam hati kau untuk maafkan aku. Itu je aku minta.
Sampai ruang dalam hati aku pun nak jajah kan.
Welcome back to Niaga Spotlight, still with me, Tamina Khalji. And today, of course, we've been discussing purposeful plastic and circular plastic supply chains with Sia Kian Hu, who's founder and managing director of Heng Hiap HHI Industri, Sendirian Berhad. So Kian, getting right back into the conversation. Now, I love the fact that you were talking about earlier, school children being able to take a pen back home and say, hey, this used to be a lunchbox, right? But at the same time, of course, we've got, and I think especially as we say, and there's a lot of jokes that go around as, you know, little cute reels on social media about the Asian mom thing, you know, keeping lots of plastics in basically recycling everything from plastic bags to plastic containers, Tupperware, you being surprised to open up Wall's ice cream box, but it having frozen chicken inside. So that's, I think, reusing has actually been a part of the way in which we as individual and family consumers do function in our society. How do we move to upscaling that to a much more community and social level so that the recycling is not just the reusing but also repurposing?
Yeah, I think that sounds, you know, as an amazing plan. So for us, we roll out, you know, different campaign, you know, so to speak. So one of the things that we try to educate is on, you know, plastic neutrality, you know, within a society. Within a society, Malaysian, we use 76 kilogram of plastic per capita per year.
Right.
Yeah. So
staggering.
Exactly. But what we are trying to see is to achieve the neutrality. It's not so much of how much plastic you use, but it is how much you recycle as well. So you balance it off. So if you hit that neutrality status, then it's okay to do that. So we work with school to schools, taman to taman, to collect the recycled plastic, and we do a statistics to show them which taman is more sustainable than the other. And the minute we gamify it like that, it's very interesting. We start to see the numbers to skyrocket. So these are the things that currently we are working with communities. The idea is really to get into that plastic neutrality status. And that is just, you know, for certain community. But there are certain other community that are more interest, there are some other community to us are more important because it adds on to their livelihood. So for example, we have a fisherman's program whereby when they're not fishing during the monsoon season, they're collecting plastic for us and then we pay them. So increasingly we are also tracking, you know, how has their income increased over time.
And that sounds so interesting to me because of course outside of just our Klang Valley bubble, so to speak, there are increasing plastic pollution pressures per se, particularly in Sabah and Sarawak, whereby Gaya Island, for example, you know, visibly speaking at least, all that can, as far as the eye can see beyond luxury resorts, is the fact that there is a whole lot of plastic, mostly because of a lack of access to water and resources, etc. Any ideas, Kian, about how that can be approached in such communities whereby we have already seen great and fantastic returns from encouraging monetization for gathering, let's say, 1 kilo of plastic, right? But how can that be sustainable? How can we encourage perhaps the opening of full-scale facilities that are modern and sophisticated enough that the next tropical storm isn't going to destroy them?
It's all, one baby step at a time, one small step at a time. You're absolutely right about Sabah Sarawak. In fact, we bring in the ocean-bound plastic scrap all the way from Mantanani Island, Sabah. So we actually work with the NGOs to collect the ocean-bound plastic material, and then we build them, we ship them, to Johor Bahru, whereby we convert everything into a specialized material, which is being certified by the ocean-bound plastic certification.
Understood.
So that is very important. In fact, HHI is the first company in the world to be certified with a zero plastic ocean-bound plastic certification. Now that actually showcase the traceability and also the authenticity, and we are able to sell at a higher price, and that help us to support our initiative like this. So we start working with them, and the minute we start collecting from all this resort, mostly island specific, and by the way, we have approximately 800 islands in Malaysia.
That's right.
And working with them, that actually helps us to collect this. The minute they start to collect the recycled plastic, they also become a buyer of recycled plastic material or products. So now we are working collaboration, same with the 4M, project that we are supplying, crates, basically plastic product that they are using at this point of time. Although right now it's still, West Malaysia, East Malaysia kind of commute at this point of time.
Understood.
We are also starting to localize that and creating a smaller footprint along the way.
So that's also
something we're doing.
Yeah, the economic buy-in is what sounds most promising to me, because once you have communities who are also depending on this, not just for their livelihood, it also increases the interest in ensuring sustainability of the business model.
That's absolutely right. And also in the process, we are also automating. We're introducing a lot more high tech in the space, So I think being 22 years in the business, we have enough data to help us to automate, to simplify. Not to mention that going forward for the industry, it is very important for us to be a lot more efficient, less labor dependent or foreign labor dependent, and more automation, and then make it lighter and more simplified so that we can deploy the solution. And along the way, we are also collecting data. So a lot of interesting things are happening. So
it sounds like
the
an
space.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So moving from there and casting the net even wider, Kian, as we move towards closing out the conversation. Now, the recent UNEA 5, which was the UN Environment Assembly, happened in Nairobi. Now, over there, the most interesting takeaway was, of course, talking about the end plastic pollution to form an international legally binding agreement by 2024. So basically looking at the Global Plastics Treaty, or GPT 2030, what are your thoughts on not just the stakeholdership which countries like Malaysia ought to take, but also, because this is going to be something legally binding, what mechanisms, strategies can we also already put in place? We shouldn't have to be just following a global treaty. Of course, we will be signatory to it. We've had representatives from the corroborating ministries, etc., speaking and advocating at that level. Your thoughts?
Sure. Maybe I'll step back a little bit about, simplifying, this entire agenda, so to speak.
Please.
So I think what this Global Plastic Treaty believes is that the GPT believes in a plastic-free society. I mean, it's a bit extreme. So basically, let's just, shut off the tap. Let's just stop production in us.
Okay, let's make it to zero.
Let's make it to zero. I mean, towards that direction. Not exactly yet, but let's make it to zero. And I think, then we will live in a plastic-free society, that we don't see plastic anymore. It's moving towards that direction, and I'll share with you my thoughts, slightly after. But for HHI, we talk about this internally. We always think about, fast forward 50 years from now, what's the relationship between plastic and society?
Yes.
So we either live in a plastic-free society, where GPT is moving towards, or a plastic-neutral society. HHI, we believe in plastic-neutral society. And I think that's what we are going to, that's what everything that HHI is doing is moving towards plastic neutrality. Now, I still am supportive of GPT. The reason being that, fundamentally, before anything, we always need to go back to 3R, like what you were mentioning earlier on. We always want to think about how do we reduce, how do we reuse, and how do we recycle. So more often than not, we need all three. It would not be just one that can fix this very complex problem. So the first GPT might be moving towards that direction. However, I believe there will be a GPT 2.0, 3.0 to come, whereby it will then start to pivot towards neutrality.
Understood.
First we reduce,
sure.
Then we reuse, then we talk about recycling. Simply because a plastic-free society is expensive to live in, because the substitute is going to be very expensive unless all of us are going to compensate on development, quality of living, so on and so forth. We believe in neutrality simply because that's the way we can continue to grow as a planet together and at the least minimal environmental load that's possible.
That's right. I think minimal environmental load, that really is the key. And perhaps it is the anxiety of the visible plastic pollution that has, of course, become a lot more part of news headlines. So, well noted on that. So let's look at the fact that in closing out the discussion, continuing this kind of business as usual attitude, of course, would actually mean that plastics will be contributing up to 19% of global greenhouse gases, the GHG targets by 2040. So the GPT is, of course, looking at cutting production and setting extended producer responsibility targets. But what kind of investments are actually needed to be able to see this happen, particularly for a country like Malaysia and a region like Southeast Asia as well, where plastic production kind of also goes quite hand in hand with the very thriving economy of those who recycle plastics.
Well, let's talk about Malaysia. Malaysia, we are a oil production country.
Yes, we are.
And we are very strong in oil-related and supporting industry. So this is very vital for us as an industry. You're absolutely right. 19%, that's a big number if we talk about the carbon contribution as a whole world. And definitely we have to do something about it. And looking at plastic, I mean, just use this simple cap as an example.
Sure.
If 19% goes into the plastic industry, for a single use, we make, we use, and then after that we throw it again, then 19% is very big. But if we look at plastic, plastic has a lot of advantages and disadvantages that we know. But plastic has one magical advantage that many people do not know, which is each and every time when plastic change its shape and form, it creates value. So crude oil, someone creates value means someone pays for it. When crude oil, you make it into naphtha oil, someone pays for it, and then you make it into resin material, someone pays for it. You make it into product, someone pays for it, and then when it's being consumed in collector bags, someone pays for it. You crush it, someone pays for it, and then you separate it, wash it, and then you make it into recycled material. Along the way, someone pays for it, as long as you are changing the shape and form. Plastic material.
True.
Yeah.
So plasticity, in a sense, in action, right?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
you can recycle this plastic, 7 times rule of thumb, depending on the environment, of course, 5 to 7 times.
7
times.
One little bottle cap.
This one little bottle cap.
Okay.
So you recycle that mechanically 7 times. After 7 times, the molecular structure collapses.
I see.
So you cannot recycle that anymore. Then you go into a chemical recycling that you convert everything into naphtha oil again. So once it's naphtha oil, you make into plastic, new plastic material again, but this time without any crude oil base. It comes from recycled plastic. That 7 + 1 cycle can technically go on forever.
Understood.
So now let's come back to the 19%. With the 19%, if we're using single use, divided by 1. But if I go through that 8 cycle, then it's divided by 8. But if that 8 cycle can go on forever, then I can divide that indefinitely.
It's an infinite number of different configurations and
Correct.
loops,
And then suddenly that 19 becomes very, very small, and that's how we achieve sustainability. And that's why, I think collectively, how, with the producer and consumer and government and everybody play a role to basically juggle this plastic, in the air, so that we can create that perfect loop whereby plastic continue to change its form and shape and continue to serve humanity for our growth. And collectively, when we can give plastic a circular life, then that's how we reduce the overall environmental load.
Perfect nutshell. Kian, thank you so much for not just your time, but also your insights. I'm sure we've all learned a lot from that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, that's all we have time for today on Niaga Spotlight with me, Tamina Kausji. We'll see you next Friday with more business analysis and insights. Here's to a productive week ahead.